Hello everybody, my name is the Cynic, and welcome back to another installment of Everything Great About. Today we're going to be covering Tale of the Brave, perhaps one of the most popular Thomas movies in the fandom. Although it does have its flaws, there is certainly a lot to be admired here, so please subscribe to boost my ego, and let's talk about Tale of the Brave. Straight away, the beginning of this movie is a very strong one. We're given a logical reason as to why Thomas is off his branch line at the clay pits, and we're also treated to the introduction of Bill and Ben. The clay pits themselves are also fantastically rendered. Not only had we not seen them since the classic series, but they also strike a very nice balance between pleasantly industrial and also gimmicky in a nice kind of way. Timothy isn't the most unique of characters, but he does have a very nice design, and so I'm going to give a win for that, because I like seeing variety in the kind of engines that we see on Sodor. Generally, I just love the way this movie uses its time before the credits start to roll. None of it's filler, it's all set up, and it sets up important concepts that the audience will need to remember for the main body of the movie. The title sequence itself is also pretty wonderful. Thomas always has very unique title sequences when it comes to movies, and this, in my opinion, is one of the best. Perhaps my favourite thing about Tale of the Brave is shown best in this scene here, and that is that it is a real improvement from King of the Railway. Now, what do I mean? Mostly here I'm talking about the characters. In King of the Railway, although the characters weren't badly inconsistent, were more tools for the story than actual characters. Here, however, in this scene, every single character is spot on. The personalities of Thomas, the Fat Controller, Bill and Ben, James and Gordon are all absolutely perfect. I love the fact that Brenner was always improving throughout his movies. This is the kind of dialogue and banter that we just didn't get in King of the Railway, and that's one of the reasons I love Tale of the Brave. I also really like this tiny scene here. Get it? Because frogs would be scared of an alligator? It also builds up a nice expectation subversion for later when we discover that Gator isn't actually the villain. It's a very ominous sequence here, and it makes you think he could be up to something. Marion is a character that I'm not sure how to feel about. On the one hand, I feel like she did somewhat replace Ned, who in my opinion was better, but then again, she's also incredibly unique and is a personality we just don't have anywhere else. She's also great female representation, so points for that. There aren't actually that many CGI-only characters that I would say I love. Stephen would be one, and Gator would absolutely be the other. Most CGI-only characters only have one or two characteristics, and often those are very flanderized and forced. Gator, however, has the audacity to actually be a complex character. He isn't really super well developed, he only appears once or twice after this movie, but you really get the feel that there's something more to him than the rest of them. He's not gimmicky or made to sell toys, he's very relatable, with very relatable flaws. Monsters Everywhere is a fun song. It's not the best song of the movie, but it works. I also think it's a very nice diffuser of tension. Up until this point, we've had a lot of crazy intense sequences and dialogue as well. It really works as the first scene in the movie that's not afraid to just have a bit of fun. The graphics, visuals, and animation are all top-notch too. Speaking of animation, I'm going to give another win for how this movie used a lot more variety of times of day. We see a lot of sunset and sunrises here, and I think it really works. It makes Sodor feel like a living world, rather than plastic, if you know what I mean. That was another problem I had with King of the Railway. The environment didn't really feel very ambient. It just felt like something on a screen in front of you. Tale of the Brave is truly immersive, and I think a lot of that is down to the animation itself. A win is also deserved for the dialogue scenes at Tim the Sheds. I love these scenes. It would have been so easy to make them feel boring, like the characters just firing words off at each other. However, they're really dynamic, and they build each character up throughout the movie. This leads to development, and I think it's one of the movie's biggest strengths. Even when the pace is slow, the audience is still comprehending and listening because important things are happening, and that keeps them invested in the plot. Gator's backstory is quite possibly my favourite sequence in the movie. I absolutely love it. It's not super detailed or elaborate, it's not some crazy origin myth, but what it is incredibly well presented. Gator here is pretty much a parallel to Percy, and not to mention the animation style in this story is absolutely fantastic. This was a very different format for Thomas, but they really pulled it off. As much as I dislike the 2D Thomas reboots, if they made it look like this, I have to say I would have a harder time hating it. I also think this story provides a really nice segue into the main moral of the movie. Let's talk about that for a bit, since I think it's perhaps the best moral any Thomas movie has ever told. Tale of the Brave's moral is truly unique and very, very rare for a kids show. In many movies of this kind of genre, you'll hear morals like, being brave means you aren't scared even when it's hard to not be scared. This movie, however, has a no-nonsense approach to it. Bravery isn't the absence of fear, it's the presence of courage. Bravery isn't when you're missing something, but it's when you have something. James is another character that I really like in this movie. It's not his best appearance, and I do feel he's maybe a little mean in this one, but everything he does is perhaps somewhat understandable within his point of view. He does everything he does to get a kick out of it. He's willing to go to incredible lengths to make him feel good about himself, even if that means tormenting and scaring others. It says a lot about his character and CGI, really. Our Tale of the Brave, as in the song, is perhaps the best of the movie. It illustrates the moral I mentioned before really, really well, and it's quite catchy too. I get it, the scrap monster is kind of a silly and gimmicky concept. However, I actually think it's incredibly clever at the same time. The writers knew that Percy's fears being non-physical and just completely unreal wouldn't really strengthen the character, and so they used James as a device to make Percy's fears into a physical thing. The scrap monster, if you will, is a physical representation of everything Percy is scared of, and that's why it works. This scene is a really, really nice one. It shows Cranky has a heart of gold. I think another thing I really like about Tale of the Brave is the way it treats secondary characters. Cranky and Bill and Ben aren't the most important to the story, but they're all given time to shine, and I appreciate that. The climax, say what you will about the abrupt tone shift afterwards, is a very, very strong one. It's really intense, and Percy almost dies. I really like this new approach to climaxes that Brenner and his team took in Thomas. Every time there was a climax, it was very unique and different, unlike Spencer and Diesel 10 just chasing down victims, but also, it really built on the characters. I think one of the problems earlier Thomas had was the fact that the climaxes were climaxes, but they weren't really very character-driven. They relied too much on being cool and didn't focus enough on the characters that were involved in them. Tale of the Brave is completely different. It brings together most of the major players from the movie and shows new sides to their personality. It's a great one. The ending of Tale of the Brave is one of the most emotional Thomas moments ever. I think it's one of those things that doesn't really work unless you've watched the entire movie before it. If you were just to find this clip on a compilations channel, you wouldn't really understand the power behind it. The power of this ending is that there have been 4 major players in the story: Thomas, Percy, James, and Gator. All of them have interacted and had dynamics with each other, and now, one of them's going away pretty much forever. That's really weighty, and it makes the movie seem a lot bigger as a result. This was a perfect finale, and nothing will convince me otherwise. The music is also super emotional, it just gets the tone bang on. And that's it folks, Tale of the Brave. As much as I like this movie, this is a slightly shorter video, and I'm sorry for that. However, I do have plenty of video ideas, and some of them are rather large projects, along with some medium-sized videos I'm hoping to pump out in the meantime. Next week, we're going to be taking a bit of a different approach to videos, and looking at Tugs, the sister show of Thomas, namely my favourite episode of it. Thank you for watching, this has been the Thomas Cynic, and until the next time, have a good one.